It's definitely my favorite developer conference. I love the kind of marrying of all these different topics and like seeing all these folks in person, both people I've met on the internet and real life. It's a super energizing place to be.
Well, this is actually my first time at Universe. It has been awesome. Not only the event and how it looks and feels, but the people and the energy, like everybody's really excited to do really nerdy things. And that's kind of my favorite thing.
The community is really great. There's all different types of people. Everyone obviously really loves the GitHub platforms, and we're all here for essentially just making ourselves better and more productive.
I came here, I got open source, and I got a fresh new deck. I'm loving it. It's great. It's fantastic.
The conversations, the number of different topics that you can talk to people about. We literally just had a question and we're talking to some of the GitHub experts about it and solved a problem we've been working on.
Seeing the vibrancy of the community, the colors, even just how things are portrayed, and the little gifts that I have a programmable name tag. I love all these quirky little things. It speaks to the community of just how nerdy, but also fun and interactive. And I think it's a really just cool vibe to be around.
I've spoken at many conferences at this point, and most of them are more corporate driven and quite a bit just louder, frankly. But here I've made friends with many people. Everyone feels approachable, and I feel approachable too, and I've really enjoyed that experience so far.
Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever in the world you're joining us from today. Welcome to Startup Wednesday. Thank you for being here. I'm Andrea Griffiths, a la Colombia Dev, everyone, and welcome to another exciting Startup Wednesday. We have a super fun guest today and a startup that's really making waves in a field that's so important to all of us, security. But before we dive into today's interview, I want to make sure that for those of you who are joining and might not be fully familiar with what is GitHub for Startup, I want to give you just a quick overview so you know what kind of awesome choices you have. So GitHub for Startup is an incredible opportunity for new businesses looking to leverage top-tier development tools. What do you get with GitHub for Startups? You get free access to GitHub Enterprise. You can get up to 20 seats completely free. Yes, completely free for a full year. And then once you're scaled up and you've gone through that first year, you even get a 50% discount the second year. Awesome. You also get the support of the industry's best DevOps platform. You have access to all of GitHub's complete platform, and it's going to help you build and scale your business all in one place. And finally, this is my favorite part about the entire program, and I think the one that adds the most value. Sure, the seats are great, the credits are great, but I think the real magic is on the tailored product guidance. You're going to have startup-friendly onboarding experiences. You're going to have office hours. You're going to get to know other founders. There is a great brain trust share of technical best practices. Basically, it's going to be a space where you can not only make the best of the GitHub platform, but also just have fellow founders, fellow startup entrepreneurs just going through all together. So if you're interested in learning more about GitHub for Startups, I'm going to share a link with you now. And as always, remember, I'm a production of one, so things might take a moment when I say I will share this. It might take a hot second to do. There we are. So please go ahead and just check it out, gh.io. Well, actually, this is a different link. I apologize. Here we go. gh.io/GFS info, and that's going to take you to the GitHub for Startup space where you can actually see the criteria for the different startups that can apply, and you can apply, and someone from our team will be in touch with you. Well, thank you for letting me share that. I also hope that all of you who are in the Bay Area or have an opportunity to travel to the Bay Area have already secured your GitHub Universe tickets. It's going to be awesome. I don't want to, not only do I not want to, but I can't spoil any of the surprises that we have. But we do have an incredible lineup of announcements, speakers, and different opportunities. So I will be there recording some video podcast, and my entire team is going to be there in GitHub Central and just answering questions. It's really a great opportunity for you to have one-on-ones with the GitHub team, and then also to just enjoy the awesome Universe vibe, which is, let me tell you, impeccable. Well, so let's get started. My guest today, I'm going to go ahead and introduce him, is the founder and CTO of Panther. And what is Panther? You might wonder. It's a startup modernizing SIEM with detection as code and scalable, actionable alerts. Jack has over a decade of experience in cybersecurity. He started as an incident responder at Yahoo, and then developed Stream Alert at Airbnb before founding Panther. And it is my absolute pleasure to welcome you here today. Jack, thank you for being here. I appreciate you.
Thanks for having me, Andrea. Good to see you.
Thank you for joining. I've had an opportunity to have a couple of conversations with you, and I'm just thrilled that you're going to share not only, of course, the Panther founding story, and a little bit, we're going to have a demo. We're going to get to see Panther in action, which is going to be super exciting. But we're also going to get to know you a little better, and I think you have so much that you can share to other founders. So I'm super excited for you to be here today. So thank you again for accepting the invitation.
Of course, excited.
All right. So Jack, we got to start from the very basics because everyone has an origin story, but I want to know Panther's origin story. And then when it comes to you, what was the inspiration behind starting this company, and how did you identify the need for this new approach to security operations?
I think like a lot of founders, I felt some pain firsthand and wanted to fix it. I think all founders have that urge to build and create things that could make our lives easier or better. And I spent my whole career in cybersecurity. I came out to the Bay Area about 12 years ago. As you said in the introduction, I started at Yahoo as a security analyst. And as we were going through the process of getting all of the logs that we needed across the entire production infrastructure, our corporate infrastructure, we just ran into a ton of challenges. The first one was that most off-the-shelf solutions just did not work for us. And in that time, in the early 2010s, you really had two camps. You had the camp of teams that would be sophisticated enough to build it themselves using big data infrastructure like Hadoop, or you'd have the teams that would just operate at a smaller scale and use an off-the-shelf solution with decent effectiveness. So really the pain that led to Panther very down the line really started here, and it started in an inability to get the data we needed to do our jobs. And as you can probably imagine, doing security monitoring without data is kind of like flying a plane in the fog. Like you don't really know where you're going and you don't have any clues or waypoints. So it's really challenging and frustrating, and it actually puts a really big risk on the business if you cannot answer questions about a breach. So fast forward, many years to Airbnb about 4 years later, and we had the opportunity to sort of start from scratch. So Airbnb was is a unicorn from the mid 2010 era, and they were fully cloud native. So that was the first experience that I had there, and we had the opportunity to create something from scratch, all on Amazon using serverless. And we open sourced the project. It's called Stream Alert. It's still on GitHub. And it grew really quickly. A lot of people resonated with the approach because it allowed teams to scale really rapidly. It allowed them to have an event-based system, which was much cheaper. And it allowed folks to use Python and store their data in a data lake. So really alleviated a lot of these problems that we had over the years in SIMs with that they're just notoriously expensive. They're pretty ineffective when it comes to understanding your environment. And they're really slow and clunky sort of legacy systems. So that's kind of the lead up story to Panther and sort of what inspired the journey to start the company.
That is fantastic. And I love that it actually had a bit of a open source origin story, right? Like having that experience. I've shared on the chat a link to this stream alert for you folks who want to check it out. But with Panther, you're taking a different approach to security, right? You're using detection as code as an approach work in practice. And I love to better understand for folks who might see other solutions that are out in the market or that have experience with SIEM rule-based systems, like what is the difference? What are the advantages between utilizing this detection as code approach and anything else that's out there now?
Yeah, it's a great question. And it is a divide in security. There's a lot of folks who swear by detection as code is the best possible way of doing security operations. And then there's the folks that haven't been exposed to it as much and maybe aren't as much of a strong like coder mentality. So we're huge fans of it, obviously. We're huge proponents of it. Our customers love detection as code, and the community really as a whole loves security as code. And that's been a big trend over the last like 5 to 10 years. And the reason is that it's just extremely reliable. Anything declared in code has tests, unit tests. These are just principles in software development. And this allows us to trust our monitoring. If we can't trust our monitoring, we don't have confidence that when the bad stuff is actually happening, that we're going to see it and find it fast enough. And security is really a game of obviously one, prevention, and two, speed of detection. A lot of teams that we work with want to know within a minute if something bad is happening. And at scale, you can imagine that's a really hard problem to solve. So detection reliability, number one, huge advantage of detection as code. Second one is Python, just in general, is loved by security. And that's a big reason that we chose that as our language. Obviously, you do have to be familiar with simple coding, which is now made significantly easier with Gen AI, especially with Copilot, which I use every day to plug Copilot. And we just find that using tools like Python is just extremely powerful for data analysis, as we see just generally in the world right now. The final area that I think really is different about how we approach detection as code is we combine a lot of different analysis techniques. So for example, you can get real-time alerting on more atomic behaviors. So a really simple example is like, I'm logging in from a country that we have 0 employees, let's just say. Like that's like one atomic example that might be high confidence enough to alert somebody. But we do additionally what we call a scheduled rule, which is we'll look historically and we'll look at aggregates. And then we have another technique that's around sequence detection. So it's really about combining all the various techniques together to get really strong, what's called monitoring in depth. And then with that, we have really high confidence that when the bad things happen, that we detect them through a lot of different like redundant mechanisms. So that's really like our mindset around it. And specifically with detection as code, you know, the part that I'm going to demo today is really exactly around this. We recently released during Black Hat a new framework called PyPanther. And PyPanther is our framework that allows security teams to layer and make their detection rules work for them by layering the organizational logic that they need to detect things that are unique to them. Not every organization is the same, obviously, but there are a lot of commonalities. And the framework really allows teams to codify what's unique about them into the detection rules. So that's what we're going to look at a little bit later today.
That's awesome. And I love that approach because it can really help be customized to like the security needs of different companies. I love security as a code as a whole. So we have this saying, I'm sure you heard it if you tune into any GitHub things, that like whose responsibility is security in any company. And what our security officer wants us to say is us, right? And raise our hand, because really, even if that is not your focus, it should be top of mind as you're writing code. So having, of course, a programming language that's beloved, using Python, and then making it so easy for developers to really use this top of mind is absolutely a game changer. I'm super interested in that. Super interested in the data ingestion capabilities. This announcement that you just shared a bit and what we're going to see in the demo, but I'd like to also understand a little bit better about how that works within Panther, the platform itself, how you're handling audit log integration. And then, of course, it's like you said, you can't fly the plane without the instruments. So this is such a game changer. I'd like to better understand, what this is offered for, like compliance, security monitoring, because it's truly a game changer in the industry.
Yeah, and the ingestion question is actually really related to compliance because a lot of teams just need to stockpile data for security, and a lot of the traditional SIEMs are just too cost prohibitive to do that. So the approach that we take is every piece of data that hits Panther is highly structured, and we have automated tooling that will generate those schemas and will help the teams get to this world of unstructured log data to highly structured security data lake. And we sort of do all the glue in the middle. So we have an ETL pipeline. We take the logs, we parse them, we normalize them. We do like time normalization, a lot of like really minute, like specific things that are really tedious to do on your own. We take care of all of it for the teams so they can focus on the higher order, more important stuff. And then everything is segmented into tables as a data lake. Today, we use Snowflake as our security data lake in the backend, and exploring what that looks like in the future as well. But what you get out of that is really optimized threat hunting. So as column-based storage, your queries are so much more efficient than if it's a just typical index sort of data store that's bound by storage and compute. By splitting and separating them out, and this is more of like why a data lake is great. By separating storage and compute, you can really rapidly scale your data ingestion, and then you can have a lot of levers with how much gas you really want to pour on your queries to make them go faster. So we've just seen a lot of success in this model, and through time, it allows teams to just collect everything, collect their VPC flow logs, like extremely high scale. Like we have customers that send us upwards of 100 terabytes of logs per day, and it's all highly structured. It's all going into the data lake. And they might use it for real-time analysis and historical analysis, or they might just keep it in the data lake for compliance. So there's a lot of these ways that we can optimize our queries and our detections using this architecture, and we're just really bullish on what's been happening in the cloud data lake space.
That's awesome. And the fact that you don't need a tool, but you can use Panther to do this, like to get that time to detection and the time to action. And companies don't need to concern themselves with ingesting all this data and analyzing and doing the human analysis of this, but it's an automated function. That's absolutely fantastic. I want to see a little bit about what you can show us. I'd love to understand better the GitHub integration, obviously, because I hope folks who are using, if you're building on GitHub, give Panther a go. So let's take a look and see how this integration works. And if you could demo it, that would be amazing.
Cool. So I'm going to share my screen and take us through some visuals. Is that coming through okay?
Here I am.
Awesome.
Yep, modernizing SIEM.
Awesome. So just as a super high level overview that I think will help set the stage for what I'll demo. Panther is a modern SIEM. We're really focused on detection as code to provide actionable alerts at scale. That's really our focus. We're really built for these really, really high scale needs of security teams. I was just talking about the data pipeline. Really, the reason that we spent so much time investing in the data pipeline is to reduce ops overhead significantly and save a lot of money. We want all of our security data. We don't want to be blindsided in the event of an incident. It's a really bad place to be. Detection as code, we've talked a little bit about already. Really, it's just about reliability of those detections, expressibility, being able to have confidence that things are running and that we'll get the alerts that we need. And then the data lake is really the foundation that ties a lot of it together by storing highly structured data at scale. And this allows us to have no blind spots. What it looks like end to end, just a quick visual. So we have a few different mechanisms of getting data into Panther. You can send it to us via a push. So it can push to an HTTPS endpoint that we host, or it can push to typical Amazon sources like SQS or S3. We can also pull data from APIs directly, and we have a bunch of those. If you're on our website, you can just go to our integrations and you can see what we support there. All of that data is normalized right when it hits Panther. So it's a streaming system. It's an event-based system. We have real-time streaming rules that run, and then we also have other different ways of analyzing as well. I mentioned correlation rules. I mentioned scheduled rules, things like that. And what that leads to is high-quality alerts to where people can come back into the platform and use our search. We actually are launching a new framework called Pantherflow, which is a Custo-based query language as well. So we're really excited for that. And that's really going to help expedite a lot of these investigation workflows. So that's high level of the platform. Let's talk a little bit about GitHub logs. So GitHub logs are actually extremely important for security teams for a lot of reasons. And this is like a super meta presentation. It's like we're working with GitHub and we're going to use Copilot and we're going to do some really fun stuff today. So basically, the reason that you would want your GitHub audit logs in your SIEM are to monitor a lot of really important events that happen within your organization. So things like authentication, changes in access, obviously Git pushes, Git pulls, Git clones. We want to see everything going on. Our IP is so important, and it's actually really commonly targeted by bad actors. So having the audit trail and very tight security controls will help keep our IP safe. And GitHub specifically has a few different ways of integrating with Panther. So I mentioned a few of them. We can pull from the API. We can also receive events that are pushed. It really depends on how you've configured your GitHub instance, whether it's cloud, on-prem, etc. So that's a little bit about why you'd want your GitHub logs. And this is what they look like in Panther. So I gave a screenshot of our search. And I'm just looking at my Git push in the last few days, and we can see on the bottom right that we're looking at the logs database. So Panther's a few ways of segmenting the data for performance. And then you can see the actor, the action, the org. I hid the repo for security, and you can see the protocol that I used to make that. And within this, you can start to conceptualize lots of different rules that you might want to write on this data. To give a visual of what this looks like. So when you run a action in GitHub, that generates an audit log on the server. Panther every minute will pull the latest logs, and then we will effectively see, does this log match any rule? And if it does, we'll create a new alert. And if there's an existing alert, we'll add to that, and we have an alert window. And then the alerts get sent out based on how you've configured that rule. All the logs also go to the data lake. So shortly after data is landed in Panther, you can search it. And all of this rule logic gets declared in Python, as we'll look at in a moment. And really, this is the pipeline that we utilize. So it's very event-based. It's very rapid, very quickly. You can get alerts and you can find potentially malicious behaviors going on inside of your organization. So let's talk about PyPanther. So I mentioned this before. PyPanther is our library built for detection at scale. And really what it's designed to do is to have a really structured, formalized framework for overrides. So overrides are the organizational's specific needs for monitoring. And everything is declared in Python. And what this ultimately gets you is really less overhead in rule management. With PyPanther, you can do mass overrides across hundreds of rules. So you can tune, you can add filters, you can do all sorts of really impressive stuff. You also get fully streamlined CI/CD workflows. So as things get pushed up to your Git repo, you do your code review with your team. All of it's automatically deployed into Panther. And we have really rich tooling that we're building for developers and making sure that they can test their rules locally and continually refining that. And finally, what this leads to is great alerts. This is really what we search for as security practitioners. This is what it looks like. So rules are declared in Python classes. And within those classes, you have a set of attributes and methods that control how the rule works. So in this particular example, we're looking at AWS ALB logs, which is network traffic, kind of like a firewall. we're looking for a high volume of 400 errors, which could on very specific ports as well, so web ports, and this could indicate that an attacker's trying to break in and do something bad. So it's one of those little canary in the coal mines that we can really use. And the thing to pay attention to the most is the rule method. So the rule method really is the logic, and in returning true, you get an alert. So let's use a GitHub-based example, and let's do a little demo and explain what we're gonna create today. So with what I'm about to show in VS Code, we're going to look at multiple sensitive actions taken on a GitHub repo that could indicate a compromised account. So this is things like if someone makes a repo public, if they're downloading a zip, if they're deleting the repo, things you just really do not want to happen. And we're going to look for successive, like multiple of these behaviors. One in isolation probably is fine, typically. However, if we start to see multiple, that's a sign that something really bad is happening. So we're going to write a rule using Copilot to do that. And our strategy for this, I think it's really emerging, obviously, using Gen AI for SecOps, but I'll share a little bit of the thought process that I think that teams could use to help them in this. So I'm a huge fan of Gen AI. I use it every day. I've been a huge fan of tools like Perplexity as well for doing like an alternative to Google for web search. And you should use these tools for research. So Perplexity is really great for something like researching the latest trends. You could say, hey, I want to write a rule for looking for account compromise in this sort of part of my environment. What's been happening in the industry? Like what type of breaches have used those vectors? You can do research there and get some pretty good data. Another one that I found that's really effective is using ChatGPT to understand audit logs. Oftentimes, teams will publish audit logs into their website. So GitHub actually has a really great website for explaining exactly how their audit log is structured, which events that you should be monitoring, and really how they work. And then when we come to creating rules, there's a lot of tricks that we can do for actually using Gen AI to build detection rules. And you can do this with role assignment. You can say, hey, you're an expert detection engineer, and you can give it context so it knows the setting in which you're about to prompt it for an instruction. You can feed it examples, and you can do some tuning as well. So Gen AI is not just a one shot and you're done. You can use it iteratively. You can make things better, and Copilot makes that fairly easy. So I'll switch screens really quickly.
This is awesome. That's one aspect of generative AI that I think is it hasn't been talked about enough. The support of security best practices for research, like that's amazing, and making it so much more accessible for people to actually be thoughtful about the code that they're writing. I love the question about like what are the vectors that what in your not in your experience, obviously it doesn't have an experience, but what like based on the sort of amount of data, what have you seen out there that can help me write this query in a way that's going to be the most efficient to do better detection, to actually take advantage of the overrides and all that. That's amazing.
And the beauty is that you can teach it frameworks. That's exactly what I did here, and we're gonna look at that. But if you're listening and you don't use Panther, you can use all these same concepts in other platforms if you wanted to. You could prompt it. I'll share the prompt that I'm about to use. But a lot of these concepts are transferable, and I think just understanding that's super important, and that really helps up-level everybody. And that's really the goal. The goal is for us as vendors to share our learnings that we see from multiple companies, hundreds of customers that we've had exposure to. So that's a really amazing position to be in just from a community perspective.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to share how I've done this in VS Code. VS Code's my editor of choice, and I'm using Copilot. So basically what I have is the PyPanther starter kit, which I think I saw a comment come through for that. So the starter kit is basically what we give all of our customers to get started in PyPanther, and it's really a scaffolding that helps them bootstrap their repo. So I've actually gave this prompt out to a few of our customers as well, and got a lot of side-eye emoji responses to it. So I think a lot of people are very interested in these types of things. But basically, the way that you can do this is that a hack I learned recently is around using tags. So you can really take a long prompt and add tags to qualify what you're telling the LLM. So you always start with the role assignment. So we're saying like, hey, you're an expert in cybersecurity detection, and your task is to build us a really great rule. We want to create a Python class that's inheriting from the PyPanther library, and you just give it all these details of effectively how you want to delegate the creation to the LLM. LLMs love examples; they learn really great from examples. So we're going to give it one that's in our built-in GitHub rules that looks at a user creating an access key. So this isn't what we're going to create today. We're going to do one that's around account compromise, but just to give it a sense of what the rules look and feel. And then we're going to explain some conventions. We're going to explain the methods, some attributes, and then really at the end is the instruction. So the instruction is the task at hand that you want the LLM to do. And then we're going to have Copilot do it for us. So we're gonna ask it to look for repo access, repo destroy, download, and transfer. And these are things that could lead to the exposure of IP unintentionally or the destruction of IP intentionally by an attacker. And we're going to tell it what we want. We're going to say, hey, we want this to look at our GitHub audit logs. We want it to have a specific tag on that rule, which allows us to do things like very specific targeted testing and alerting. We're going to also explain the intention of the rule. So the rule is really looking at sensitive actions in repos. So we can give it all this instructions and then it will fill it out. And you might think like, okay, well, this is a lot of work for just one rule. And you're right, it is. You could theoretically spend the time learning the framework and everything, but it's much preferable to just create a natural language interface for our teams than to have to learn a framework. And for the developers who love to do that, by all means, like please. And you can get really creative with the framework. But the beauty of LLMs is that you don't have to do that anymore. And we see tons of people getting into coding that were never coding before. And that's really incredible. And ultimately is going to push everything forward a lot faster. So let's generate this rule. So follow the instruction above. Live demos, always very nerve-wracking. So, so off the top, we can see it's doing a pretty good job so far. And, it should. It had a lot of examples. We're just going to accept it. And you can see there's some red squigglies. And the reason is that the prompt did not add the imports. So we're just going to type from. And there we go. Cool. Those are fixed. And before we look at the rest of it, I'm just going to test it. I'm just going to see how good was this? Was this terrible? Did it do well? And we have a command called PyPanther test, and we're going to do tags, GitHub demo, and it worked. Cool. Let's do verbose just to see what the actual tests are. Okay, cool. So I'll explain the attributes in a moment, but let's look at the tests first. So the tests validate the behavior that we're monitoring. So, and this is actually hilarious. I don't know why it's doing this. I did not tell it Octocat. It just like knows that the actor is that. It's just using its big LLM brain. But basically it created 5 tests for us, and expected result true means that this would generate an alert. So if someone hits this critical repo in this critical org, we'll get an alert on things like repo access. And you can expand the logs out further. It's fairly limited because it only knows what I told it, but yeah, that's really all we need to make this rule. And we could expand that. So what I was saying before about the documentation, if you prompt engineer it with your documentation and you summarize your docs and you feed that into the prompt, then this log can be completely filled out and you can give it more in-depth instructions. So anyway, so the tests are defined in this top level attribute called tests. So we'll minimize that just to make it easier. So let's see what it did. And I'm just gonna expand this to make it a little easier. I should tell it to probably not do really long lines. So that's one thing I could ask it to improve on. But what this is doing is that this rule function runs on every event that hits Panther. And this is a streaming rule. So as soon as the event comes to Panther, we analyze it right away. And then we sort of group those matching events based on the title. So what you would see is user Octocat is performing multiple sensitive actions on the repo. And it would group it based on those two things. But if you just wanted to group it on the actor, you basically just get rid of this. So you would just get rid of that interpolation. And then now anything that user does, if they do more than 2 of those actions, they will trigger this alert. So it really varies. You have a lot of flexibility in how you want to group the alerts. And then that controls ultimately your knobs on detection. So it's done a pretty good job. So it set the severity to high, which is what I asked it to do. It set the tags as GitHub demo. It did everything that I wanted to. So that's basically it. That's what I was shooting for. And if we wanted to have it, modify the rule in some way, then we could do additional prompting. So let's say define sensitive actions on the class instead. Let's see if it does it right. So typically, and that looks good. Yep. Let's try it up. Of course, live demos. Let's redo that. Anyway, so what it did is it basically pulled this up here. And then we did a self here. And this is actually an optimization for streaming. You don't want to redefine sets every single event. You can actually just define it once on the class, and then you can reference it. And that's just a paradigm that we use for high performance coding. So that's basically it. So from here, what you would do is you would do PyPanther upload, and then anytime that that event happens, you would get those alerts. And we can use tools like Copilot and PyPanther to really expedite the creation of these detection rules. And the beauty is that you could have an instruction that says, hey, build me 10 rules that has these criteria, or you could build entire rule sets. You could do overrides. There's really a lot that you can do here. And it's extremely, extremely powerful to take advantage of using LLMs. So I'll stop there. That's kind of the short and sweet. There's a lot more I could show using the platform, but if you're curious on how that works, Andrea has a link that we'll share at the end, and you could try it out firsthand.
Yes, for sure. Go ahead and share, and just you can go to gh.io/Panther demo and request a demo. Somebody will reach out to you, but you can also go ahead and give it a go. That was awesome. I love that you can so you can use generative AI to help you write the alerts that you want to receive, and then that works fantastically, and we should lean into. That's one beautiful use case for artificial intelligence. Please lean into this. I love that you share those prompts with your customers so they're able to customize them to what their use case will be, and then just able to integrate it all. And those things, like you say, sure, you could have someone build this, create an extension, just set it up. But why do that when you can utilize, just lean into the LLM and then use like tools like GitHub Copilot to help you build them? I love that. But now that I have all these alerts, then I want to make sure that I can, filter them down. I want to know what kind of customization options do I have, like to how I am receiving the alerts. So for management, for notifications. So once I set this criteria and it's working beautifully and catching all these bad actors or would-be bad actors, what can I do? How can I customize the way that I receive those alerts?
So all the customization happens in the rule. So all you would do is on the rule itself, you would say, I want to send this alert to these destinations. And you can do it in a few different ways. You can just have it static, so always send to the same destinations, or you can make it more dynamic. So I'm just going to share again really fast so you could see. So you could effectively define additional logic in the destinations function.
Mm-hmm.
And there you go. Look at that. It's fun. Okay. So you could do something like if event.get. See that's actually not bad. You could do some. I don't think actually that URL would work, but let's say that you had a Panther integration called GitHub Alerts. You could do it this way, right? So this allows you to route the data accordingly. So destinations is one. We also have one called severity. So severity, and it's like pre-filling everything that is not necessarily needed there. Although if you like type hints, you could do that. You could do the same thing. You could say, if event.get repo let's see what it does. Yeah,
Oh,
there you go.
okay.
That actually
Good
did
job,
it right.
Copilot.
Yeah, Copilot, it does pretty well. I'm a big fan. So you could do things like this, and severity high is the default. Maybe you want to make it something else. So maybe it's like, non-crucial repo, which actually wouldn't fire. So let's actually just take a particular example. Let's just say, yeah, critical, or maybe just like, typical repo. You could do this, right? And then if there's any hits on this particular repo, we'll downgrade the alert. We actually just shipped a feature where you can just actually call downgrade on the severity, which is kind of cool. So downgrade is just like relative. So go from high to medium. And then from there, Panther actually has a lot of default routing based on severities as well. So there's an order of precedence based on how you configured your PyPanther repo, but we have a ton of flexibility in alerting. And then there's also a alert context, which is it's really the pieces of the enrichments, the log that you really want the analyst to see first. It's just a dictionary, so you can modify that here too. So there's a lot of flexibility, and it gets actually a lot better because you have the ability to sort of meta program all of your rules. So if I want to, for example, exclude any bot activity, which is very common when you're monitoring GitHub, because bots have elevated privileges and they're doing stuff all the time, and we want to differentiate between humans and robots, we can create a filter and we can attach that filter to all our rules just in 2 lines, right? So this effectively would say, I want to exclude if the bot is true. And that actually will help reduce false positives quite a bit. And you have the flexibility. So you don't need to do this. It's not something we do by default, but it's very trivial to add, and it can reduce your alert volume really significantly. And we actually have some pretty interesting auto tuning capabilities that we're working on too. That's related to Gen AI. So doing stuff kind of like this for the customer without sort of exposing them to need to think about the prompt engineering.
I love that. And whoever is monitoring these alerts, whoever's on pager duty for this is gonna love this too. Having that
Yeah.
refined system and making sure that you're actually getting alerted for the things that matter and that require your attention. That's fantastic. That's fantastic. So we're able to set the rules, we get the notifications, we get the alerts, we can set how we want to get alerted. How about reporting? How about analytics post event? What features does Panther have to help us, security teams and non-security teams, really gain insight from all that data that's coming in?
That's a great question. And it's really important for a lot of reasons, both for data ingestion, just making sure that logs land, operations, making sure that our logs are continuously sending, and then cost monitoring. And then one of the most important aspects here is making sure that our SecOps program is healthy. If we're getting tons of alerts every day from particular places, we want to understand why. And hopefully, we can use the concepts that I mentioned here to continuously drive that down over time. But it does take a lot of intention. You should be highly focused on the metrics and driving them in the right way. So the way that we help teams do that is we have a fully redesigned search interface. And I flashed a screenshot of it in the presentation when we were looking at the GitHub auto logs. And within that, we have a search language called Pantherflow that's about to come out, teasing it, giving people a little bit of a sneak peek of things to come. And Pantherflow looks and feels like a lot of other pipe-based languages that you've used in the past. Things like Kusto, it's actually based on Kusto. And you can use that to generate graphs and visuals on how your system is performing, from the alert metrics to understanding the data more visually, to looking at things like operations and cost. And there's a lot of ways that we can sort of slice and dice the data using Pantherflow. So look out for an announcement that's coming pretty soon there. And then for folks who are already Panther users, just reach out to the team to learn more.
Thank you for the sneak peek. I love that. This kind of exclusives only happen at Startup Wednesdays, folks. So you have to tune in. I appreciate that, Jack, so much. Okay, this is super fascinating. And I'm sure there's a lot of people that are watching right now and they want to give it a go. I want to share the link to the Panther Starter Kit. Can you tell us a little bit about what's in the Panther Starter Kit so that folks understand what they're getting into once they visit this page?
Yeah, so the starter kit is just a scaffolding, and really what we've been seeing customers use it for is a really strong starting point for their rules. And with the starter kit, you can define which built-in Panther rules that you want to run. You can define your overrides as well. So the things that are unique to your organization, you can codify them in the starter kit and in code. So the starter kit really lays out all of these paradigms around overrides and global filters and your main.py file, which controls the entire configuration. It also includes a command line called PyPanther, where you can do your testing, similar to what we did today, where I did PyPanther test. You can also upload it, and we have a lot of CI/CD workflows that have come built in. So it's really it's effectively the starter kit from going from 0 to 1, and then hopefully from 1 and very far beyond. And we're continually adding to it. We have some more that we plan to open source in the near future. So look out for that. And yeah, that's the starter kit.
Yay, I love that. Thank you. That would be my use case. Bundle it up, give it to me. What's a good boilerplate where I can then start setting my rules and experimenting with it. So there you have it, folks. Go ahead and click on that link, take it for a spin, give it a go. I also want to share another resource that I saw from you that you put out, because you have quite an impressive amount of thought leadership around security, so much experience now building your own company. And there was a blog post in particular that there was a quote that I read that I found it fascinating, because I think there is so much misinformation about how we can better utilize LLMs. And we're definitely not even begun to scratch the surface about the capabilities for security and the add-ons to the entire life cycle of software development, but also importantly, things that matter like keeping bad actors at bay. So I want to share your blog post. Sorry, please, folks, go ahead and give it a go. Check it out. Is this blog post in particular that I'm sharing? It's going to be on the screen now. It's something that you showed us a bit about today, about how you're setting up prompts to help the tool create the better rules to use with your system. So it's called LLM Fundamentals for SecOps Teams. It's a really good article. Highly recommend folks go give it a read, because there's a lot of practical advice there and things that you can start applying. I don't think we can ever say that we're done learning about prompt engineering and how to better utilize these models and make sure that we're actually using them to the best of its ability. And if you're in the SecOps phase, we're only getting started there. So definitely go give it a go. Read this, please. Try the Panther Starter Kit. I'd love to hear experiences from all of you, making sure that you come back and you can leave us a comment, and then also go ahead and reach out to Jack. I'll go ahead and check share your LinkedIn one more time too. Jack, before we go, and thank you so much. You've been so generous with your time, and I feel like I understand a lot more now about how the tool works. Not only that, but why it's important. And leaning into GitHub Copilot to help me write it makes it to me a lot more accessible. So I feel like I can go in and actually start setting rules and not have to think about it so much. Love it that it's in Python, art to that. But I want to ask you a question, because this is also about knowledge sharing, not only the technical aspect of building a startup. The technology is so important, but as a founder, I know that there is a lot that comes into time spent, all the things that you do. They're very demanding, and I want to leave folks here with some advice. We learn amazing best practices in security and how this tool can really level up the way that we're monitoring and approaching attacks and keeping security tidy on all our applications. But I want to ask you, like on a personal level, how are you balancing all these demands of building a business, such an important business, such a stressful business. Every time that you talk about security, I get a little bit stressed. And also finding time to take care of yourself mentally and physically. We had a conversation before. Would you actually recommend it? But now I can say it's one of my most favorite books. Folks, DM me if you want to know what it is. I don't want to share it in case that's not okay with you, but
you can share it.
It takes a lot. Oh, I can share. Okay. The book is
good.
Good Energy. And there's Dr. Casey Means.
Yeah, Casey Means from Levels, if folks are into CGMs and glucose.
I told you it's like it kind of ruined my life, but it also not ruined it. It made it better. So I'm super excited to. I have like maybe one chapter left, but it's so hard to start thinking about these things and looking after yourself. So please share what strategies do you have? What best practices have you found when you're doing something like building an incredible company, being in such a high pressure environment, working with things that are so relevant and important to your customers, but then also, how do you look after yourself? Teach us your ways, Jack.
Well, my schedule and my days are very different as CTO. So I was CEO for the first 5 years of the company's life, and this year I made the transition to CTO to focus more on the projects that we shared today, Panther. Also to spend time with a more diverse set of the company, doing things like customer enablement and really just like spending tons of time listening to customers. Kind of going back to a lot of the roots of starting the company, which has been really, really fun and rewarding in a lot of ways. The advice I would say is everything starts with intention. The intention for your day, for your time, how you want to show up, who you want to be, what you want to grow and improve upon. And that's like the founder instinct in me. I think always looking for growth and looking for optimization. And that may not be for everybody. I understand that. I don't know why my brain's wired like that. But I've just found consistently that intention and reflection is so important. It's important to kind of take yourself out of your head for a moment. Think about how you're spending your time, what you want to be doing, what you need to be doing, your own needs, the needs of people around you. It's really helpful, and it's really led to what I love to call flourishing for things like health and social and a lot of different aspects of your life. It's really about taking care of everything. If you're just working 20-hour days and you're not taking care of the people around you, you're not taking care of yourself, that you're not really going to have the endurance to do a startup. And startups are really about endurance and working with great people and really fostering that team. So yeah, that's my biggest advice. That's like my most meta abstract advice is intention. So know where you want to go, and then just be relentless in figuring out how to get there. That's my advice.
I mean, that's excellent. Intention is so important, and it's so tough to make those decisions and be like super meta intentional about where you're spending your energy. Because I'm one. Right now, I'm in Argentina. We have a massive conference. I have 50,000 things going on. I'm like, no, you gotta slow down and figure out, refocus. And thank you for sharing your personal experience about how that's actually led to flourishing. And I love that. So, folks, if you're watching this, whether you're watching it live or you're watching the recording, take a moment to reflect on where you're putting your energy at and be very intentional in what you're doing, because you heard it from Jack himself. That's only going to make you a better founder. It's only going to make your business better. And so important, the relationships around us, making sure that we're not only looking after ourselves, but our people. That's just fantastic. Fantastic. Jack, thank you so much. Is there anything else you want to leave us with? And I'm sorry, we're going well over time. I knew it was going to happen. I'm sorry about that. Anything else you want to leave us with? This has been so informative, and I really appreciate you being so candid at the end and sharing your personal bit. That's fantastic.
No, I really appreciate you having me on, Andrea. It was a really fun conversation. Thanks for plugging the Substack. Been writing a lot there, so I'd say just stay tuned for another post on LLMs coming pretty soon, likely related to what we talked about today. If you're curious more on the platform, on Panther, check that out, or ask your friend who might be using it to get their experience. And yeah, GitHub has been an amazing partner through the years, and I highly recommend that you monitor your GitHub logs if you don't. So please do that, please. And yeah, that's where I'll end. So I appreciate you having me on, Andrea. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jack. Thank you. Folks, go ahead and take note of all these links. I will also add them to the description of the show once we're done, so that you can click on them. Subscribe to Jack's Substack so you can get this amazing content. Give Panther a go. Like our CTO likes to say, or actually he's our CTO now, I believe. Security is everyone's responsibility. So even if this is something that you think it does not pertain to you and you shouldn't be bothered with this, you should really take a look and figure out how you can incorporate this into your day-to-day. It's going to make your team happy. It's going to make you happy and make your customers actually have an increased amount of trust. And that's what it's all about, right? Doing what's best for our customers. So Jack, it's been an absolute pleasure. I hope you come back. You have to come back after you do all these fun releases that you teased us with. I want you to come back and show us what it was all about. And yeah, this is definitely your home. You're welcome to come back for another segment. It's been great to have you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We'll definitely take you up on that.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jack. Take care. Folks, go ahead and give it a go. Try the Panther Starter Kit. Go ahead and have a read at this Substack. There is so much stuff out there right now. I feel like everyone it's putting out a ton of content and just adding the Zing LM and AI to make it, just being a SEO catch. But this is actually, it's got a ton of substance and it's actually going to be a good add-on. So give it a go, give it a read. If you're thinking about building something, if you're starting to build a company, if you have an idea, you should be building and making that happen on GitHub. So don't forget, go to gh.io/GFS-info so you can apply for GitHub for Startups and take advantage of all the free licenses, all the free resources, but more important, this amazing community of founders, very much like Jack, who just have such incredible insight on what it's like to be a founder and help scale your companies, help growth. You can go from 0 users to millions right here in GitHub. So take advantage of this opportunity, folks. Thank you so much for being here. I super appreciate you joining us for Startup Wednesdays. If you enjoy the show, please share it. We're trying to make sure that folks know that this is happening. Not a lot of spaces where you can share thought leadership for founders, specifically when you're growing these businesses and everybody's moving so fast. But I super appreciate everyone that's come on. We'll have another amazing founder next month. If you would like to be featured on Startup Wednesday, go ahead and fill out this form and tell us why. Tell us about your startup. I hope you're already using GitHub for Startup, but if you're not, you can go ahead and sign up for that too. But I'd love to have you here and have a conversation about how you're building what you're building. And remember, you should be building it on GitHub. Again, I'm Andrea Griffith, a la Colombia Dev. If you happen to be in Argentina, I will see you at Nerdiarla tomorrow. We're going to be live. I have 4 or 5 team members that are going to be there. We're going to be doing demos. We're going to be showing some cool stuff. And of course, would it be a GitHub conference if we didn't have swag? So we have lots of fun things happening. So thank you so much. Thank you, Pratmish. Thank you, Eagle Alpha. I appreciate everyone who joined today. Thank you, Jesus. We'll see you next week, or actually 2 weeks from now, I believe. And don't forget to go ahead and subscribe to this YouTube channel so you get a notification when there is another amazing segment on. Thank you so much. Have a great night. And I hope to see you tomorrow if you happen to be in Argentina. Nerdiarla is completely free. So no excuses. Take care now.